Rob, the news of the day, Steve Nash is fired. Bravo! Bravo! This had to be done. And Rob, I think I said it on the show. I wondered, would the Nets do it, even though it was clear that Steve Nash had to go? Because I thought, man, do they feel like they might look like they're kowtowing to Kevin Durant? And to their credit, they did not let that stop them, and they fired Steve Nash. Look, it wasn't all his fault. It was a tough situation, to say the least, for a first-year head coach. To be honest, any coach. But he's gone. And, Rob, they got issues they still got to work through on the court and off the court. But I feel better about their chances today of doing what we both said they would, which was win the East. You actually said win the whole thing, than I felt yesterday.
And let me say this. I'm with you in Bravo, okay? Steve Nash should have been fired after they got swept by the Celtics, okay? And I think that's really, Chris, where he should have been fired. And, there was questions about his coaching. Agree. And then also the start, the 2-5 start. And it was a struggle every night. They beat Indiana last night, but it's always they're up by 22 and they struggle. They were up. They were up by 20 to
win that game.
Right, they were up by 20 against the Mavericks the other night too, Chris, and they lost that game.
Yep.
Like they were. It was a struggle. And if you're going to give coaches credit when things go right, they get blamed when things don't go right. And we talked about it, Chris, just yesterday. The Phillies were 22-27, and they made the move. And guess where they are? In the World Series tonight, Game 3.
Yep.
So this whole notion that, because I had a friend of mine in Detroit, Stoney, and he was making a case about Dan Campbell. Oh, no, just let him finish the season out or whatever. Why? Chris, why? Once you realize a guy it ain't there for the long haul, move on. And in this case, Steve Nash got a fit. Chris, you're right. It's not all his fault. The injuries, my God. Kyrie not getting vaccinated, my God. We could go on and on and on.
Right.
Okay? So we're not saying it's all his fault. But you can't get rid of the rest of the team. And so you got to make a move. And sometimes, who were we talking about, Chris, last night? We talked about this because we mentioned the Phillies, and we mentioned that sometimes you got to make a change because people, they tone deaf. They keep hearing
just
you.
a voice. It might not. I think it was Nash, to be honest.
Well, we just talked about this last night.
You just need a different voice sometimes. He wasn't getting it done. Look, the offense was unimaginative. Remember, Rob, against Boston, he couldn't get Kevin Durant an open shot.
Right.
He couldn't get him an open shot. We all saw it. Kevin Durant. You got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, two of the best one-on-one players in the NBA, and you couldn't get them an open shot. All right? Enough said.
No, I'm with you. And bravo to the Nets for not worrying about what it looks like. Chris, didn't we?
Right.
I feel like we did this show yesterday because we also mentioned, no, we did. And remember I mentioned to Joe Dumars, it's not about being right. It's about getting it right.
Yep.
So you can't stand on, well, we don't want to look like Kevin Durant got his wish and they fired him. No, you're 2-5. You're scuffling. Get it right. He's not the right guy for this bunch of players. That doesn't mean he can't coach again or there's some other situation that might work for him. It didn't work here. Enough.
And Rob, what we said was that, look, and we're not gonna get into Dan Campbell. I think let him.
No. I know.
Whatever. But I hear what you're saying. And the point is this: you're right. They should have fired Nash over the summer. They didn't. And I argue with Nick Wright about this on First Things First. So he's like, well, why now then? Why not? Well, why not now?
Right.
Because now it's still early enough for you to salvage the freaking season.
There's only 7 games in, Chris.
2-5, you're not getting it done. They're not listening to you. You don't emphasize defense. The offense is still not as nearly as good as it should be. You haven't gotten through to Ben Simmons. You're out. And we still have 75 games left to turn this thing around.
And
That's it.
And as you know, Chris, it ain't even about being a number one seed if you have talent. You want to be playing well going into the playoffs, and they have as good of a shot if those three guys are playing. And the supporting cast, look at that roster. Are you kidding me? To be 2-5 and I know they got a couple guys banged up, Chris, but they should be better than they have been.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. You mentioned it, a few games where they had big leads and blew it. And look, we know that the main thing they need to do, Rob, is defense, right? The offense, you have great players. They need to defend. And I contend, Rob, that unless you have a coach who emphasizes and focuses on defense, making that your identity, you won't be a great defensive team. And here's the proof, Rob, for those, because some are saying, the Nets, they just don't have defenders. They can't be a good defensive team. I'm not saying they're going to be the Celtics of last year, because the rumors are that Ime Udoka is going to get the job. We'll get into him a little bit later in the show. But, Rob, check this out. For those that say the Nets can't turn it around, and right now, for the record, they are dead last in the NBA in defense. All right, dead last. The Lakers, Rob, new coach, Darvin Ham, who emphasizes defense, right? 21st in the league defensively last year. They're third right now, okay? The coach who emphasizes defense, basically the same players. Boston, under Ime Udoka, who coached 1 year there, Rob. The year before he gets there, 14th in the league defensively. Nobody thought of them as a great defensive team. Last year, when he takes them to the finals, second. Utah, Quinn Snyder's another coach's name that's out there, been rumored that he's in the running. Rob, his first year in Utah, the year before he got there, they were 29th in defense. His first year, they were 14th. And then the rest of his tenure there, they're like most of the time a top 5, top 10 defense. So a coach that focuses on defense can get his team to be a solid defensive team. We're not saying they have to be the bad boy Pistons, but my goodness, it can't be a turnstile to the basket if you want to win a championship.
No doubt. They got way too much talent. I'm sorry. And part of that, Chris, and their deficiencies is coaching. End of story.
Absolutely.
And anybody who wants to cry a river for Steve Nash, please. He was there, and we already gave you the missteps and the things that didn't go right, and they're not all his fault. But there's time to move on. And
absolutely.
When the Phillies fired Joe Girardi, people are like, "What? Joe Girardi won a championship with the Yankees. What are you doing? What are you doing?" New voice came in the room, and things turned around.
Rob, Larry Brown got fired.
Yep.
Some of the best coaches in these leagues, Lenny Wilkins got fired, have been fired. It doesn't mean the guy can't coach under any circumstances. It just means this circumstance wasn't right. And that
wasn't right for him. Larry Brown failed with the Knicks in New York, Chris.
Yep.
Remember that?
Failed miserably.
Failed miserably. That was a bad. It just didn't fit. And Larry Brown had a great track record. It didn't work in New York.